Hey, it's Phoebe Blamey, and welcome to the Happy Money Journey podcast. This week, I am interviewing Kirsty Allen, the Candle Business Coach. This was the most amazing, incredible interview I have ever done. This woman is sensational. I thought it was going to be something about her pivoting her business because she'd been a candle maker to a candle making coach. And it is, but it is also so much more than that. It's about authenticity. It's about how you show up for yourself. It's about how you prioritize yourself in business. And it's about all the amazing things that she does to live her most authentic and best life. If you've ever struggled with showing up for yourself and taking up space in the universe, and really presenting your ideas and putting them out there, listen to this because she will eradicate all your fears. Her attitude, the way that she's manifested things around her, the way that she lives her life with such absolute authenticity. You really need to listen to this one. She is sensational. So here we go. Here is this week's podcast interviewing Kirsty Allen, the Candle Business Coach. So here we go. So, Kirsty, tell me.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Phoebe. I'm so excited to be here and I feel so privileged and so grateful to be able to share my journey with your listeners. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. So my journey began a couple of years ago in the business realm. I one day decided to start making candles, and that came about from feeling a lack of purpose and direction in my entire life. That said, I was a new mum, so I did have responsibilities and I did have this whole side of my life that made me so happy and so overjoyed, but I still felt like there was something missing and I wanted more from my life. So I thought about, well, what makes me happy? What brings me joy? And I've always loved candles, even from when I was a little girl. So, the next thought is, well, why can't I make them? Why can't I sell them? So I started to do the research, figured out that it's more than just adding wax and fragrance oil into a jar and hoping for the best. There's actually a science behind how to actually make them and perfect them. I don't like to use the word perfection, but you want to make them to be as safe and as beautiful as possible and have a good hot throw. So it means that the scent, goes out into the room and you can smell it. So for me, that was an incredible journey. And I say was because I've recently closed that candle business and I've pivoted to become the candle business coach. So I'm actually helping other candle makers grow their businesses and transform their journeys so they can reach their goals with their candle business. So I do that via a few different ways. I've got a membership, I do coaching, I have my own podcast as well. So life is very busy. I have 3 young children and it's just a wild ride, but it's been one that I'm very grateful for.
I think it's fantastic. It's really interesting to be of that mindset where you can find something that you love to do, work out how to do it, and then the next thing you're doing is showing other people. And you've got that really high level of passion. And I know we met on Steph Taylor's Launch Magic course. And what really inspired me about you is your passion about everything that you do. You're one of the happiest people I've ever met. And you're really, really passionate about what you do. So do you do any candle making, or are we not even hobby?
No, actually, I've sold all my equipment, the last being the big wax melter that I bought to make candles in bulk. And it did break my heart a little bit. And part of me sometimes feels like I'm a little bit hypocritical being the coach of candle makers and not being a candle maker. But in saying that, there just isn't enough time in the day to run a candle business and a candle coaching business. So yes, I've unfortunately given that part of it away, but I did love it for when I was doing it. And who knows what might come back in the future.
And so when you pivoted from candle making to being a coach, what inspired that? What brought you there?
Yeah. So being a member of the various, and there are quite a few, surprisingly, Facebook groups dedicated for candle makers, as well as Facebook groups dedicated to sell, buy, and swap candle suppliers, I was seeing that there were the same sorts of questions being asked by candle makers as they were coming into the group. So, how do I get the best fragrance throw? How do I choose the right fragrance load for the fragrance oil in the wax? Which wax do I choose? And a part of me sort of took a step back and thought, well, why isn't there someone guiding these people in a more formal capacity? And then the next thought was, well, why can't it be me? And then the next thought was, well, why don't I start a podcast? And then it just the thoughts kept cascading until basically it all happened seemingly, well, not overnight, but it seemingly just happened so organically and so beautifully. And now I'm at nearly 110 podcast episodes, still specifically for candle makers and about candle making. But I've also weaved in bringing in guests and sharing their journeys and their stories, and also focusing more on the mindset and how to keep yourself motivated and accountable to yourself and your business. Because past you wanted to create this dream business, but currently you might not be feeling very motivated or might not be feeling very worthy of the journey, but future you is waiting on you to take the action today. So I feel like being the candle business coach and being able to help people not only with the technicalities of making candles, but actually helping them with their mindset, I've just landed in this beautiful cross section that brings all my passions and skills together, even though it's so specific and it's so niche. It's just been this wild ride, and it's just growing every day, which I'm so proud of.
I love that. And you've got a really, really good following in your Facebook group, I know.
Yes.
And that to me, that's one of the hardest things. I find that really hard to maintain in my business. I'm guessing it's because you bring this like huge level of authenticity. But talk to me more about how you created that group and how you brought people in. And
Yeah.
then we'll talk more about the mindset after that.
Yeah, of course. So the actual process or steps is pretty basic in terms of setting up a Facebook group. It's literally a few clicks within Facebook, and then your group is set up. But then, as you say, the challenge is bringing in people into your group, not only bringing them in, but having them stay. And then the next challenge is having them engage and be a part of this community and want to come back to this group again and again. So I did try my hand at running a few ads, and that didn't quite work the way I'd hoped, but I haven't spent enough time or enough money really to invest in learning that whole skill set. So for me, it was very much an organic growth. So I've been doing my Instagram and Facebook pages from the get-go. And so I would talk about my group in the posts on social media saying, come join my free Facebook group where we share more intimate tips and tricks about how to make candles. And we can actually, form more of a connection, because when you're just posting on social media, you don't always feel that there's a connection between you and your followers. And even the term followers seems so disconnected from actual people. So for me, it was about cross-promoting everything and saying, I've got this group, having it in my link in my bio, talking about it on the podcast, which I know not everyone has that platform to be able to promote. But as I mentioned earlier, there are so many different Facebook groups of my ideal clients inside them, such as the Facebook groups. So I would literally just message the admins of those groups and say, look, I'm the candle business coach. I'm not trying to poach anyone, but I've created a new group. Would it be okay if I talk about this new group inside of your group? And 9 times out of 10, they're more than happy to do that, especially because you've asked first rather than just posting and promoting your own things, which I feel like is very inauthentic in general, but it's very much not me, and I wouldn't do that. So, but everyone has different ways of promoting their products. And I think the big thing is with my Facebook group, I'm very strategic. So I post 3 times a week on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But the same content I'm posting in the group is like next level get to know me and my journey, as well as helping them grow their business. So I'm a writer as well. So I will, like a journaler, and I will write down my thoughts and feelings about different topics about, how to stay motivated or how to get into momentum and do all sorts of things. And then I'll share those musings with people in my group. Now, not everyone will comment on it, not everyone will like, but I know that the right people will find meaning in what I'm saying and what I'm sharing. And I feel like that's been a big part of how my group grows. One funny thing or one interesting thing is when you're an admin of a Facebook group, you can see when people request to join, but you can also see if people, like, they bring in their friends, like they request for their friends to join. And I found that that's been something that's been really interesting as I'm adding value into the group and really wanting to build that community. People are wanting to bring other people into that space, which I think is really important. Another huge part is the email list that I've built up as well. So talking about the group in the email list has been really important, and talking about it on the podcast, as I said earlier.
That's fabulous. I think one of the most interesting things for me about that, Kirsty, is how you've taken up more space, how you've kind of put yourself out there, and how you've talked about your own thoughts and feelings, and it's such an authentic thing to do, obviously, but it's really definitely bringing people in. How did you feel about doing that? Because I'm not saying you're an introvert, but you're a
I'm an
you're a
introverted,
contained
yeah.
human.
That's a really nice way of putting it. I think I'm a little socially awkward in person, but when I'm communicating like through a podcast or through my own podcast or through social media, I feel very much more open to sharing information. And that hasn't come easily, from the beginning. The first time I did a story where I was actually talking to the camera, very, very nerve-wracking doing that. I think I must have taken like maybe 5 or 6 different goes before I actually posted the video that went out. And you go through this rush of emotions of what will people think? What will they say? What if I get trolled? What if there are nasty comments? What if someone DMs me? What if people block me? What if people unfollow me? And all of those sort of thoughts. But I knew in my heart that the message that I was wanting to share was worth more than my fears around it. So after you kind of get over your own ego and just give it a go, it does become easier. And as they say, practice makes perfect. So you've just got to put yourself out there. And at the end of the day, if you've got really big goals, you're not going to reach them if you're not taking inspired, imperfect action. So you've got to keep trying, you've got to keep learning, and you've just got to keep, doing the do pretty much.
Wow. Like seriously, wow. That is one of the best statements I've ever heard. Not the inspired imperfect action. The putting the message that you had was greater than the fear you had about saying it. That is, it's true and it's brave. It's
Yeah.
not easy
Yeah.
to do. So you're inspiring these wonderful candle makers, and you've built a real business around coaching them. Can I just pause for a second? Because what you said was just so fantastic, and now I've got to kind of absorb it.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you more questions about inspiring people and taking up space and all that sort of stuff. What are some of the responses that you're getting within your group when you share at such a deeply personal level?
It's really interesting because the result of sharing those sorts of things isn't always instant. And it's funny because the Facebook group has been around since, I think, May last year, May or March. People can go back and reread all the old posts. And the same with the podcast, they can go back and re-listen to the conversations that I've had a year or so ago or months ago. So when I put out, a heartfelt post that is encouraging to others, I might get a few likes, I might get a comment saying, oh, thanks for that, or you said the right thing at the right time, or that was perfect, or, you might get a few. It's certainly not 1,000 comments because there's 1,000 members. It's not like, I would be tied to my computer if I was getting that many comments all the time. I'd have to outsource it for sure. But it's often the DMs that come in, days later or weeks later that say, I have read what you wrote and I took it on board, but then I sat with it for a little bit and I absorbed and then I took action because of it. And that's really where I think my motivation comes from to keep going, even if I'm not getting lots of likes and comments and, the vanity metrics and those sorts of things. As I said before, like my goals are so big, but they're authentic to me and that keeps me motivated. But it's kind of like a byproduct. When you follow your own light and you follow your own path and you're in your true alignment, people can't help but be inspired because we're all looking for that extra bit of motivation. And if we can see someone that we can connect with on a deeper level actually starting to reach their goals, it makes it feel more possible and more doable for us too, rather than following a celebrity, because that's too far, it's too far down the path. But when you've got someone that might be 2 or 3 steps ahead and is saying, and turning back and saying, look, this is the way that it works for me, I hope it works for you too, you can't help but just feel connected to that. And in this case, it just happens to be that people are following me because of my journey. And it's sort of, it's interesting because I don't want to get egotistical about it, but I do feel like I have a lot of power in terms of my group because what I say does have an impact. So I am mindful of what, of opinions and things like that. But at the end of the day, if I'm being true to myself in every moment and just sharing genuinely with people, it lands really positively. And I feel like when candle makers come to me and say, oh, I posted about my candle sale, but I didn't get any sales. And I'll say, what value are you adding in your posts? Are you just posting when you're selling products? People don't want to be sold to. They want to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. And yes, we're candle makers and yes, we have a candle business, but that doesn't take away the fact that you are worthy of sharing who you are along that journey. And it's really nice to be able to look back at your old posts and see how far you've come, because then that will motivate you to keep going as well.
That is so inspirational, not just for candle makers. You've got to get out there into the world of small business women, and also because there's so many solopreneurs in our communities that we're in, so many women that are just doing it by themselves that need to have this sort of inspiration and need to have this understanding that everyone's on their own journey. But the thing that really resonated with me that you just said then was about your showing up for yourself and showing up as yourself and being truly authentic. Just before we went on, and I am the makeup queen, just before we went on, I said to Kirsty that I'd been in a mess of a morning and I didn't have time to wear any makeup. And she's like, I never wear makeup, like whatever. and that showing up with our naked faces seems now so appropriate for this discussion. I'm really loving it. You're talking about keeping that mindset and keeping that motivation. And you have such a busy life. You've got 3 children and you've got husband and you've got job. And how do you make that all happen for yourself and simultaneously show up for all these other people?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I tell people, all the things that I do, they're just like, how do you fit it all in? And it's like, well, I don't watch much TV. That's a huge, huge help. Not because I don't want to, but actually, no, it's because I don't really want to. I'd rather work on my business. I'd rather work on my business and my goals. To me, I don't like to waste time. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy downtime. I certainly do. Like I do watch movies, with the kids, we have a movie night every Saturday night and we have fun and we bring out all the popcorn and the lollies and the drinks and we just go, it's a lot of sugar, but I do have downtime. But for me, one of my biggest motivators is just knowing that we don't know how much time we have on this beautiful earth. And I think I use that, I guess it's kind of a fear of not being able to reach my potential before my time, when my time comes. And so I'm 37 now, so there's still hopefully many, many years ahead of me, a couple of decades at least. So on one part of me thinks, okay, I've still got time to reach all my goals and to achieve all my dreams. But then the other part of me thinks, I might not be here in 5 years. And I want to make sure that at the end of my journey, I'm proud of what I've done and what I've achieved. And I can say, like, hand on my heart right now, I am proud of what I've achieved, but I know I've still got so much more growth. And so when it comes to, I've had a rough day at work, perhaps come home and kids are fighting, cooking dinner, and then dinner's done, we get the kids to bed and you sort of think, oh, I'm tired. I just want to go to bed early, or I just want to watch TV, or I just want to be on my phone and zone out and soothe myself with social media. All of those thoughts certainly still come into it, but then there's always that little voice that says, you've got more to give. You've got more energy, you've got more potential, you've got more inspiration to share. And it's funny because I actually send out to my email list, the ones that choose to join this section of the list, a daily motivational email. And I'm actually on that list myself. So every morning I get my own email to say, you can do it, and inspiration. Like, it's not tacky at all. It's actually quite lovely. The way I said it sounded quite tacky, but it's quite nice. It's quite genuine. And it gives you just some food for thought about how are you going to spend your day. So I send it at 7 a.m. every morning. And the emails I get back from people saying this helped me through this challenge, or this helped inspire me down this way. So again, not to be around the ego, but I get a lot of messages of people that are counting on me to show up. So I show up for myself, I show up for my family, and then I show up for my community.
I have to just pause for a moment because that was incredible.
Oh,
I love the daily motivation. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to want to find Candle Business Coach just for the daily motivation as well.
I'll send you the link.
So make sure that we've got the link, and we'll put the link into the show notes, because I think
Yeah.
I love the idea of that sort of stuff. And I know you as a very non-intrusive person. So I can only imagine that sometimes when you read those things, and I don't read them every day, but sometimes when you read those things, it is actually the exact message that you need to hear. And
Yeah.
that happens so frequently. And again, it's so brave and so amazing of you to put yourself out into the world like that, and to be that vulnerable human being that at the same time is inspiring so many people. And I can only imagine you've built your amazing community, you've got your coaching, you've got your membership, you've got a great business running, and
Mm.
it seems to be growing and growing, and I just see more and more of you. You're extremely good on social media, and I really like what you post. I love your podcast. I love listening to your podcast. And we've talked about how you fit it all in. Now I want to talk about some more practical stuff, like what kind of platforms do you use? How did you get there? What were the steps that you took to build this community, but not just build the community, because we spoke about that a little bit at the beginning, but kind of build yourself up from candle maker to candle maker inspiration person. Candle maker coach doesn't have enough in it anymore. It's just
Look.
candle fairy godmother. Candle.
Yeah, I'll take that.